What do you make of the city now? Its challenges. Things look very different in Detroit
Right.
now than they did then, but there's some problems that have crossed over and stayed with us. What do you make of what we're facing in terms of the choices that we have? And if you had to sort of crystal ball what the next mayor will face in terms of those challenges, what does that look like?
I think it's really probably the equity issue.
Yeah.
Because it's still something that comes up. I mean, my perspective on this is interesting because I worked in city government at a time where the view of the city of Detroit was very, very negative.
Yes.
It was the whole last person out of Detroit, turn out the lights. People would always hold up the city of Detroit as the poster child for urban dysfunction.
Yes.
Um, Now the narrative is kind of completely flipped on its head.
Hmm.
And the narrative now is kind of like, oh, Detroit's back.
Hmm.
Detroit's the poster child for how you can take a dysfunctional city and stage a comeback. But the reality is both of those are extreme positions that are not true.
Right.
The real truth is, if you look at those extremes, the one here and the other here, the truth is really more in the middle. And that's that Detroit is doing a lot better, but it still has some substantial issues.
Yeah.
I mean, most of the time to this day, even though people talk about all the great things that are happening in Detroit, all too often, when you get into the details of what they're seeing and what they're talking about, they tend to kind of be centered in a 7.2 square mile area of the city, which is,
Downtown, midtown.
yeah, downtown, midtown, Corktown.
Mhm.
And that's great.
Mhm.
And I do think, though, we're now seeing a lot of that spilling out more into the neighborhoods. Um, you still have to consider the fact that this is a city of, I think in total square mileage, it's somewhere about 136
Yeah.
square miles,
Yeah.
something like that. You have large swaths of the city where a lot of that progress and that development has not even begun to touch it.
Yeah.
So that remains an issue. And there's still also questions about how much of the development that is being done, how much of the contract work that is being done, for example, by firms who are actually building a lot of this stuff. You still have the question of, okay, but how much of that is actually flowing to Detroiters?
Right.
How much of that is actually flowing to Detroit-based and Detroit headquartered businesses? How many of that work is actually being done by people who look like you and me?
Right.
That's still an issue.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Now the Mayor Duggan
yeah,
says, go around the city. He says, go to every neighborhood and you can see some measure of this progress taking place. Do you not agree with that, or do you think it's just not enough in some of those places?
I think it's not enough in some
Yeah.
areas, and I don't think that's. I'm trying to think of the best way to phrase this. I think it's not through lack of trying on his part.
Yeah.
Because even after I left city government, I had an opportunity for a while when I was at the Detroit Economic Growth
Hmm.
Corporation running
Hmm.
the Detroit Future City
Hmm.
program,
Hmm.
to work directly with Mayor Duggan and
Yeah.
to work with the Detroit Economic Growth Corporation and the city's planning department. So I've seen some of the people that he brought in. Um, and I think there really has been and continues to be a very sincere commitment to trying to crack the code on how do you take a lot of what we see happening in some of these areas
Yeah.
and use it as a way to catalyze more development
Right.
in some of these hard to reach places. I just think they haven't quite cracked the code on it yet. It's a tough challenge,
Yeah.
and it's now going to be a challenge that I think will be one of the top issues that a new mayor will have to face.
So if you had a list that you could leave on the new mayor's desk, top three things, top three buttons you could push or levers you could pull to really make a difference with those disparities, that gap.
Yeah.
What would you say is most within the mayor's grasp? What are
Hmm.
the things you can move easier than other stuff?
Yeah. A lot of it, I think, is stuff that Duggan has actually done a pretty fabulous job on, and that's basic city service
Yeah.
delivery,
Uh-huh.
which I think pretty much across the board, there's really no doubt that things from streetlights being on to police response time to ambulance response time, to number of vacant buildings that are in need of demolition actually coming down and coming down in a timely fashion.
Yeah.
I think if you look at those metrics, It's been a huge success. I think the key is to continue to do that
Yeah.
and to not lose momentum. The equity piece, which I just talked about, I
Yeah.
think that's huge as well.
Yeah.
And that's going to be something that I think a new mayor is going to have to continue to focus
What do
on.
they do though for that? Like how do you fix that problem? It's not just a Detroit problem. It's
Oh, the
every city.
equity piece or
Yeah.
the city service piece?
The equity piece.
Yeah. You know, if if I knew the answer to that,
You'd
I
be
would
running for mayor again,
no,
right?
I would probably be making a ton of money someplace else in the
Right, the
private
private sector,
sector.
right?
I think a big part of it though is to it's to continue to, I think, try to empower people who have things that they want to do,
Yeah.
who have development ideas, who maybe don't have the access to capital.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
It's to try to create new vehicles and support existing vehicles to help them get the capital that they need to make a development happen.
Yeah.